Hey everyone, welcome into the Dustytron channel, and today we're going to be starting our 8-part series on division previews. The off-season's starting to heat up, we're getting close to training camp, and now's a great time to take a look at what teams have done in the off-season, free agency, and the draft, and see where they're going next year. We're going to start this series with the NFC East, so let's dive right into it. But real quick, before we get started, be sure to like that video and subscribe to the channel to be notified of all of our content, and it really helps the channel grow. I truly appreciate it. At number 4, I've got the New York Giants, and this is kind of just a mess of a team. They can only really go up from here, but what is up from here? It's probably nothing that great. I will say that the team does have a couple of good core young players. You've got Tyrone Tracy, you've got Malik Neighbors, and you've got Kayvon Thibodeau on the other side, and they just drafted Abdul Carter, which, along with Brian Burns, is going to make that a really scary pass rush. They were actually 10th in the league in pass defense last year, so that was a bright spot, but their run D was really bad, so we got to see that get a little bit better if they're going to have any shot at stopping opposing offenses. On the other side of the ball, the offense, it was a mess. Overall, third worst in the league. I would watch these guys on Sunday, and besides that fluky Indianapolis Colts game, it was like unwatchable. But the Daniel Jones experiment is finally over. But in the offseason, it seems like the Giants were kind of just throwing darts at the wall, no pun intended, trying to solve their quarterback problem. They got Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Tommy DeVito, and the newly drafted Jackson Dart, who they traded back into the first round to get. The major story in the offseason and going into the season is going to be, when is Jackson Dart going to start? And I'm cynical of the Giants. Everyone's saying, oh, Jackson Dart, they won't start him this year. Russell Wilson might start the whole season. Maybe even Jameis Winston might get a start here or there. I think Jackson's Dart could be rushed into things like in week 6. Brian Dable's trying to save his job, and if Russell Wilson plays uninspired, conservative football, kind of like he did with the Steelers last year, and they're losing games, I think that's just not going to cut it. The fans are going to want to see something more. Dable is going to be desperate to keep his job. Jackson Dart's going to get in there, and I don't think he's ready. This team was the 5th worst passing team last year, and I don't know if that's going to get any better. They were middle of the pack in rushing, so maybe if Tyrone Tracy can take some pressure off Jackson Dart as he's trying to learn, maybe it'll help things, but I just don't really see too much of an upside on this team. I like the Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter edge, and Dexter Lawrence is an absolute beast in the middle. But besides that, I'm not that inspired by this team, and I think they're just a clear choice for last place in the division. All right, at number 3, we've got the not really all-in Dallas Cowboys. They were saying that last year, not really so much this year. And to me, it's really boiling down to, who is Dak Prescott and what does he actually bring to the table? Is he the franchise guy, or is he just kind of a middle-of-the-road starter? I personally am kind of leaning towards he's just a middle-of-the-road starter. He can win you some games. He's not really going to necessarily lose you some games, but he's not going to take you to that next level. I personally think a lot of Dak's success in the past was predicated on how good the running game was with Ezekiel Elliott and other running backs they had when their offensive line was one of the best in the league. But it's just not that anymore, and you could tell with when they were trying to get old Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowell working last year, it just wasn't working. And in the offseason, they're continuing to throw old veterans at the problem. Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, and I've got a bias against Miles Sanders being bad. He was really bad on Carolina. It did not work at all. He worked out in Philadelphia because they had a great offensive line when he had that, I believe, 1,200 rushing yards season. But they did draft Javon Blue. I think that he could pop into that lineup because I bet you're going to see Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders be very ineffective. And in regards to the defense, they were in the bottom 5 overall last year. So, and I was looking through their offseason moves. I really haven't seen anything that stood out to me that's like, yeah, the Cowboys have done a lot to fix their defense. They had some flashy players in the past, but they just didn't really perform last year. And since their offense wasn't doing a whole heck of a lot, their passing offense was decent with CeeDee Lamb. But yeah, no consistency in the running game whatsoever. Their defense just had to handle too much. And I think it's going to be more of the same this year. Sure, they added George Pickens, but he might actually cause more problems than he solves. He was definitely causing a lot of issues in Pittsburgh last year towards the end of the season, and that's frankly why they got rid of him. So the Dallas Cowboys, yeah, sure, maybe they have an upside to maybe get to 500, but with the other competition in the division, I think they're really slotted into the third spot here. All right, at number 2, we've got the Washington Commanders, and they came out of nowhere last year, and I think it just goes to show what a franchise quarterback can do for you. Now, I think I'm going to fall into the trap, as many others are, that we're going to be like, oh, Jaden Daniels, he's not going to have the sophomore slump like C.J. Stroud did, because C.J. Stroud took the Texans to the playoffs in his rookie season too. Jaden Daniels, to me, just kind of is at a different level. He's incredibly mobile, and he's just so calm under pressure. He almost gives me Joe Burrow vibes of being able to keep calm and keep his team competitive, even though he doesn't have the greatest talent around him. Sure, maybe he had some playmakers, but I mean, Austin Eckler, he's past his prime. Terry McLaurin is a very good receiver, and the Commanders, I know they're in contract disputes with McLaurin right now, but they gotta bring him back. They gotta keep Jaden Daniels' progression going. Taking away his top receiver would not be doing that. But I think you saw in the NFC Championship game, the weakness of this team is their defense. Their passing defense was in the top 10, but their rushing defense was atrocious, and they got carved up by Saquon Barkley. And it's hard to get your defense off the field if you can't defend the run. You're not getting off on third down. Looking at their defensive offseason moves, Jeremy Chin departed, and I'm a little biased. I think he's really good when I was watching him on the Panthers. But maybe they were able to let him go. Bobby Wagner does return, and he played decently in his role last year. But that being said, I just don't think they've done enough on the defensive side of the ball. So really, the results of the Commanders rest on Jaden Daniels. But I'm a believer in him. I liked what I saw last year, and I think he's going to elevate the team around him, because I'm not convinced he had that great of talent around him. So I'm predicting not a sophomore slump. I think that his efforts will elevate the team, and you'll see the Commanders finish in second. Now, that being said, if he does go into the sophomore slump, I could see this being a bottom of the division team. So really, the spectrum is there, and I don't think their defense is good enough to compete with Philadelphia for the top. But, I mean, you never know what could happen. So it's the range of this team could be top of the division or dead last. And finally, we have my top team in the division. I am predicting that the Philadelphia Eagles repeat as division champions. And I'm so angry because last year I really thought that the Philadelphia Eagles were going to implode, and it looked that way when they started the season 2-2. But somehow they turned it around. When you get all of that, all the reports that were coming out about like the locker room tension and stuff like that, teams tend to fall apart on that. Somehow they came together with it and ended up taking it to a Super Bowl title, which I was not expecting at all. But yeah, as much as I despise Philadelphia for being a secondary Giants fan, I gotta admit that this team is really stacked on paper. They've got a great defense. It's great at stopping the run. It's great at stopping the pass. And they brought back their breakout linebacker, Zach Bond, last year. And their rushing attack, led by Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, was the best in the league except for Baltimore. And that, it just takes so much pressure off. Now, something to look at is that their passing game wasn't particularly good last year. But I think a lot of that is because they were so focused on the run. But yeah, I honestly think the only thing going against this team is themselves. If they get in their own way, then they could fall apart. But based on how they performed at the end of last year and how they look on paper, I just don't really see very many holes. And I think that they're the clear-cut favorite for the best team in that division. All right, so there you have it. Those are my predictions for the NFC East this year. You've got the Eagles at 1, Commanders at 2, Cowboys at 3, Giants at 4. So those are my predictions for the NFC East. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.